Well, hello class. Welcome to the end of week 7. Hey, I want to post a video a little bit earlier this week as we think about this next little over week that we have left in the term. Believe it or not, we are done next weekend, which is crazy to think about. A couple of things some thoughts I want to share. If you recall, in week 6, we looked at working in groups and teams and managing conflict and negotiations. Thought that was an interesting chapter because you were at that moment working in groups, and you were working as a group to write this organizational behavior or organizational design project, right? So you actually had it due. I gave you some extra time, and it was due during that week 6. And I find that really interesting to think about. Really interesting because you probably saw firsthand a lot of these group dynamics, these team dynamics that rose to the surface and potentially even caused some conflicts. So I want to camp there for a little bit because I want to talk about that aspect, because here's one of the things that happens when it comes to leadership. So you're studying leadership, or maybe you're in the org psych program, but there's still an element of leadership that you're looking at, right? Lots of leadership, actually, I shouldn't say an element. And here we are looking at organizational behavior. And probably you know people who they are kind of the do as I say, not as I do type people, right? So do as I say, not as I do. So maybe it's been a boss. Maybe it's even been maybe a parent. There's lots of different people that could fall into this category. And I want to make mention of that because this aspect of operating in teams, understanding people, understanding group dynamics, understanding conflict, it is one thing to know it cognitively up here. But it is an entirely different thing to actually do that which you're supposed to do, to be a good team member, to be a good leader, to deal with conflict and deal with it well. I think conflict is a beautiful thing. So I love, and you look in scripture, so as iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens, so one man, so one person sharpens another. I was talking with a friend this morning, and we were just kind of talking about the political sphere, the political spectrum. And I don't mean political in the organizational sense, but just like politics, right? So Democrats, Republicans, Independents, so forth. Talking about that sphere. And I was actually talking with my 9-year-old son yesterday about how we have come to a place where politics has become so partisan, right? So I only hang out with Democrats, or I only hang out with Republicans, or I only hang out with people that believe this, or I only hang out with people that believe this. And we neglect this reality that many of you have talked about. Again, you talked about it, but do we do it? That diversity of thought and approach and diversity of even creativity and innovation often, if not always, creates better outcomes. And so I was encouraging my son, who has some friends that even at this young of age have some political beliefs, to make sure that he's really measured in his approach and can look at all sides, and how important it is to not just limit the way that we think about things to one way. Because then we get into working with groups and people that don't agree with us, or they do things differently, or they have different expectations. I mean, all these things come to the surface, right? That's why we see, there's such a log jam. There's such a what's the word I'm thinking of? There's such an ineffective Congress because they're so partisan and they're so stuck and steeped in their belief systems that they're not even willing to work together. And so here we are in this idea. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday at work, a colleague, and he was asking me if I was involved in intergroup dialogue. And intergroup dialogue, from what I have understood it to be even a little bit, is this: we're not necessarily trying to create inroads for agreement, but we're also not willing or able to say, well, let's just agree to disagree. But we're willing to find commonality and work together on those kind of common goals, find that place of common understanding and belief, and work from there, and still partner with folks that don't see eye to eye, because we have lost the ability to do that. And so as you think about these dynamics in your groups, and the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the bad, the good, how did we respond in that? How did you respond in that? Did you respond in the way that even Nahavandi and these folks we were reading about said we should, or how we should lead people into responding to hard times? Or did we kind of go back to our initial kind of our natural, normal inclinations in response and responded that way? And so I think it's really important. I think it's a great reminder that you were living the very thing that you were studying, both this idea of groups and teams and conflict. And you may have very well yourself experienced some of those realities. And so what a better way to think about how would I respond to this if I were in that situation, by looking at how did I respond to this and what was my response. So some really important things to think about as we're digging into these real life examples, that it's not just a do as I say, but it's a do as I do. Like, are you not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, right? So that's important. So here we go into the final weekend before the final weekend, okay? I think I mentioned to you there was a typo in Canvas, and so your OB experience paper is due by Sunday at midnight of this week, but I'm giving you until the end of the term, so I give you till Friday to turn it in, so it's kind of like a credit card payment. It's due by a certain date and accepted until a certain date. And then your habit paper is due, and I'm going to give you actually until the Sunday night. Okay, so I think it's the 30. What are we looking at? The 29th is the Friday when the term is initially supposed to be over. But I'm going to give you actually until the 1st of July at midnight to get in the habit paper. Okay, and I'm going to post another video next week to talk about the final your organizational design PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so I do expect, and actually I'll probably post it Sunday, maybe even Saturday, maybe tomorrow. I want to talk about what I expect from you in that assignment. Okay, so it is a very brief video that all of you need to participate in. So remember, you're all of those that wrote the paper are going to also participate in this video. Okay, so whatever I said that may have applied to your group about group and conflict and team dynamics, this is an opportunity to work through some of those issues, okay, if there are any. So make sure that you are going to practice what you preach in this, right? And I'm happy to help if there are any issues that arise. It's a shorter, simple assignment, but something that I expect that all of you are engaged and involved with, okay? So make sure that you are focused on that. I'm going to post a video about that. The habit paper is pretty straightforward, as is what's expected in the organizational behavior experience paper. But the thing that I want to clarify a bit is what I'm looking for in this video presentation that you'll be doing. And what do I mean by video? Do I want you in front of a video? Do I want you all dressed up? Do I want you to stand in front of a presentation? All of those things. And the answer to those questions is no, I don't want that. But I'll explain more in detail what it is that I'm looking for. Okay, so this week, as we get into week 8, the final week of our term, we're looking at organizational strategy and structure, along with organizational culture and change. So it's interesting, I've heard it said that leadership could almost be, if not entirely be, synonymous with the word change. Because what leaders are doing, we're leading people, we're taking people from one place to another place. Okay, so when you move from one place to the next, you are changing, right? So from the moment of conception to the moment of death, you are from the moment of conception, you are on a trajectory towards death. And so you are always constantly changing. So leadership can really be, I think, synonymous with the word change. And so how do we lead change with people? How do we lead organizational cultural change, especially when it's hard organizational cultural change? That's a really challenging reality. And so this week, I think it's a great week to end our course as we look at this content. And I would say that because we give you some real life examples, Saddleback Church, the Montgomery Bus Boycott, the neurology of free will, all these different realities, kind of looking at things from a business standpoint. We're still digging into BOA, these final 10 pages or so. But then how do we structure organizations? How do we do organizational strategy? What even is organizational strategy? And how do we navigate organizational culture and create change within that? Okay, so you have a good amount that's due this next week. So let me remind you, I want to say it again, your organizational behavior experience paper. It's due Sunday of this weekend, okay? But I will accept it until Friday the 29th at midnight, okay? So you have an additional, Sunday, so 5 days after that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay? Your habit paper, okay, it is technically due at the end of the term, and the end of the term is technically the 29th at midnight, okay, so Friday night, but I will give you, for the habit paper alone, until Sunday, the 1st of July at midnight, okay? So you've got those 2 extra days. And then your organizational design PowerPoint presentation, which I'm going to post a video about probably the next day or two, Sunday at the very latest. That is still due Friday at midnight, okay? And that's a group project that you all that were involved in the paper writing are responsible for also working on that, and I will give you specific details on what to expect with that, okay? So you have your final journal entry, your quiz, your presentation, the habit paper, and then you are done. Okay, so you have done an exceptional job. Your insights have been so thoughtful and thorough, and I just can't tell you how grateful I am for your investment in this class, your engagement in the learning. One of the things that I'll say again, but I'll say even right now, is even though this class will end, and it's going to, in 1 week or so, I'm still available. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you want more resources, I'm happy to do all of that for you. I want to be a resource and support you in any way I can. This has been a really fun class for me, and I've seen a lot of growth in you. I've had some good conversations with a number of students, whether it's via email, the phone, even in person. And getting the combination of all of that interaction with students, that's a real joy for me, and I'm grateful for that. So kudos to you for this great term of learning. Let me know how I can help you. Have a great weekend as you're kind of writing papers and finishing up posts and discussions and all that. And I look forward to seeing you online this weekend and then the coming days ahead.